Adrian Velasco believed he had built the perfect double life in Miami, but Lila Santos' surprise anniversary trip and Maricel Ramos' unexpected arrival at the same luxury resort would expose a secret so dark it would destroy everything he worked to protect. Dr. Adrian Velasco was known across Miami as a dedicated cardiologist with steady hands and a calm presence. At the private hospital where he worked, nurses described him as focused and disciplined. Patients often requested him by name, trusting his reputation for careful treatment and quiet confidence. Outside of work, he lived in a modern waterfront home with his wife, nurse Lila Santos, who had moved from the Philippines years earlier to build a better future. Together, they appeared successful and stable, the kind of couple others admired. Their social media pages showed beach sunsets, hospital award ceremonies, and anniversary dinners at upscale restaurants. Friends saw polished smiles and thoughtful captions about gratitude and love. Adrian made sure every photo told a story of devotion and hard work. Lila believed she had married a man committed to both his career and their marriage. Yet behind the carefully arranged image, Adrian followed strict routines that no one questioned. He kept one phone locked at all times and insisted on handling certain financial matters alone. He often claimed late-night emergencies at the hospital, leaving home without hesitation. His explanations were always logical, always calm. To the outside world, Adrian Velasco was a respected doctor and loyal husband. But beneath the surface of that perfect life, secrets were already growing, carefully protected and dangerously close to being exposed. 3 years after marrying Lila, Adrian traveled to Houston to attend a national cardiology conference. The trip was supposed to last 4 days, filled with lectures, networking events, and hospital meetings. Instead, it became the beginning of another hidden life. During a hospital tour connected to the conference, Adrian met nurse Maricel Ramos, a skilled and ambitious Filipina nurse who had recently relocated to Texas for a temporary assignment. She admired his confidence and experience. Adrian presented himself as a single man devoted entirely to medicine. Over the next few months, Adrian found reasons to return to Houston. He claimed professional workshops and research collaborations. In reality, he was building a second relationship. He rented a small apartment at first, saying it was more convenient than hotels. Later, he quietly purchased a condominium under a limited liability company registered in another state. The paperwork left no obvious trace connecting the property to his Miami address. Maricel believed she was stepping into a stable future. Adrian spoke about long-term plans and even discussed relocating to Texas permanently. Within a year, they married in a simple civil ceremony with only 2 witnesses present. Adrian told her he preferred privacy because of his public profile as a physician. By then, Adrian had mastered the art of separation. Different credit cards, separate calendars, and carefully timed messages ensured the 2 women would never overlap. He believed discipline could protect him from consequences. For a while, it did. Adrian's life became a carefully structured schedule built on precision and control. He treated his double existence like a medical case, studying every detail and eliminating risks before they could grow. Flights were booked weeks in advance, but labeled as hospital conferences. Credit card statements were redirected to a private email account. He memorized timelines so thoroughly that he could recall exactly where he claimed to be on any given date. In Miami, Lila believed the long hours were proof of his dedication. Adrian often left before sunrise and returned late at night, blaming emergency surgeries or sudden complications. He kept his tone steady and his explanations short. When she offered to visit him at the hospital during overnight shifts, he discouraged it, saying the intensive care unit had strict visitor policies. In Houston, Maricel accepted that his career demanded sacrifice. Adrian promised that once his investments improved, he would reduce his workload. He gave her thoughtful gifts, identical to the ones he sometimes gave Lila, careful to change only small details like color or packaging. He created traditions with both women, making each feel special and secure. But the strain began to show in subtle ways. He checked his phones constantly. He grew irritated when plans changed unexpectedly. Small mistakes appeared, like mixing up dates or repeating the same story twice. The lies were still intact, but they were becoming heavier, requiring more effort to maintain. Adrian believed control was everything. yet control was slowly slipping from his grasp. As their 5th wedding anniversary approached, Lila wanted to do something meaningful. Adrian had seemed distant in recent months, often distracted and tired. She convinced herself that work stress was the only reason. Determined to surprise him, she secretly planned a weekend getaway to Key West, a place Adrian once mentioned wanting to visit again. She booked a luxury beachfront resort, arranged a private sunset dinner, and scheduled a couple spa session under his name. Lila told Adrian she would be visiting a friend for the weekend, so she could arrive early and prepare everything. She imagined his reaction when he walked into the decorated suite filled with candles and framed photos from their years together. For the first time in months, she felt excited. When she arrived at the resort and checked in, the receptionist typed Adrian's name into the system and paused. The reservation was already confirmed for that same weekend, but it showed a different guest listed with him. Lila's heart tightened, though she kept her expression calm. She assumed it must be a booking error. Instead of confronting the staff, she quietly asked for a seat in the lobby cafe. From there, she could see the main entrance. She told herself there had to be a simple explanation. Minutes stretched into nearly an hour. Then the glass doors opened, and Adrian stepped inside, not alone, but holding another woman's hand. For a brief second, time seemed to stop. Lila remained seated, her hands resting stiffly on the table as Adrian walked across the marble lobby floor beside Maricel. He was smiling, relaxed, unaware that both of his worlds had just collided. Maricel carried a small gift bag, likely meant for an anniversary celebration she believed was hers alone. Adrian looked up toward the reception desk and froze when his eyes met Lila's. The color drained from his face. His confident posture collapsed into visible shock. Maricel followed his gaze, confusion slowly replacing her cheerful expression. Guests nearby sensed something was wrong as the tension filled the quiet space. Lila stood slowly, her movements controlled but firm. She didn't create a scene. She didn't shout. Her silence carried more weight than anger. Maricel stepped back slightly, her eyes moving between the two of them, searching for understanding. Adrian attempted to approach Lila, but security staff, alerted by the visible distress, positioned themselves carefully to prevent escalation. Within minutes, hotel management escorted the three of them into separate private areas to avoid public attention. The romantic surprise had turned into undeniable proof of betrayal. 2 confirmed reservations, 2 anniversary arrangements, 2 wives. In that moment, Adrian's carefully balanced double life cracked wide open. The lies that had been structured so carefully over years were exposed in a single, devastating encounter under the bright lights of a resort lobby. In the days that followed, shock turned into investigation. Lila returned to Miami with a quiet determination that surprised even herself. Maricel, equally devastated, reached out after realizing she too had been deceived. Though strangers, they shared the same painful truth. Instead of turning against each other, they began comparing timelines, receipts, and messages. The patterns were undeniable. Adrian had spent alternating holidays in different cities, often using the same excuses. Bank statements revealed transfers to accounts neither woman recognized. When Lila examined tax documents stored in their home office, she discovered unfamiliar property records. A quick public search confirmed ownership of the Houston condominium under a company name linked back to Adrian's professional license. Maricel uncovered something even more alarming. Adrian had insisted on taking out large life insurance policies shortly after their wedding, listing himself as the sole beneficiary. Lila checked her own files and found identical policies taken out 2 years earlier. The coverage amounts were substantial, far beyond what seemed necessary. Concern shifted into fear. Why would he need such large policies on both wives? Lila contacted an attorney who advised filing a formal complaint. During a deeper financial review, irregular hospital supply orders surfaced under Adrian's credentials. Certain medications had been requested in unusual quantities, and internal logs showed adjustments made to patient dosages shortly before unexpected complications occurred. The betrayal was no longer just emotional. It was beginning to look calculated, deliberate, and potentially criminal. Once the attorney forwarded the financial findings to authorities, a formal investigation began. Detectives reviewed Adrian's professional history, starting with the unusual medication orders linked to his hospital login. Pharmacy records showed small but significant dosage adjustments made late at night, often during shifts when Adrian was the supervising physician. The changes were subtle enough to avoid immediate suspicion, but serious enough to affect fragile patients. 2 previous deaths were reopened for review. Both patients had been recovering steadily before suffering sudden complications. At the time, their conditions were blamed on underlying health risks. Now investigators questioned whether those outcomes had truly been natural. Forensic specialists re-examined medical charts, timestamps, and electronic access logs. Adrian's credentials appeared repeatedly at critical moments. Meanwhile, financial investigators uncovered mounting debt hidden behind his polished lifestyle. Risky investments in private ventures had failed, leaving him with loans he could not openly explain. Credit lines were stretched thin. The large insurance policies taken out on Lila and Maricel began to look less like protection and more like preparation. Friends and colleagues expressed disbelief when questioned. Adrian had always been composed, methodical, even cautious. But that same discipline, investigators noted, could have enabled something darker. The theory forming behind closed doors was chilling. Adrian may have been positioning himself for financial escape, willing to sacrifice trust, and possibly lives, to protect his own future. As investigators gathered enough evidence to move forward, word quietly spread through legal channels that formal charges were imminent. Before authorities could publicly announce the case, Adrian made a sudden move. He booked a last-minute international flight using a shortened variation of his name and attempted to leave the country with only a carry-on bag. Airport security flagged his passport after law enforcement entered his information into a monitoring system. Within minutes, he was detained at the departure gate, his calm expression finally replaced with visible panic. Search warrants were executed on his Miami home and the Houston condominium. Inside locked drawers and encrypted devices, investigators found falsified financial documents, hidden accounts, and detailed spreadsheets tracking insurance policy timelines. The records showed projected payout calculations aligned with specific dates. It became clear that his double marriage was only part of a larger plan. Medical experts concluded that dosage alterations in the reopened patient cases were intentional. Electronic logs, security footage, and pharmacy inventory matched precisely with Adrian's access times. The evidence formed a consistent pattern of manipulation. In court, the charges included bigamy, insurance fraud, attempted unlawful flight, and multiple counts related to medical malpractice resulting in death. The respected cardiologist who once commanded trust now faced the possibility of life behind bars. Lila and Maricel, bound together by betrayal, attended the hearings side by side. What began as a romantic anniversary surprise had uncovered a carefully engineered deception. Adrian's greatest mistake was believing his intelligence made him untouchable. In the end, it was his own meticulous planning that led investigators straight to the truth.